Welcome to the Level 3 award in delivering physical intervention training. So this is sort of an overview of the qualification and what is expected when it comes to doing your course. Before we start to deliver our physical intervention training, we need to conduct a risk assessment for that training environment where approved SA techniques or physical intervention techniques will be taught. And this is essential for safeguarding your participants. And these techniques are specifically designed to minimize the risks during physical intervention training. We'll start with the venue risk assessment. So first you need to look at where you're training. Look at for hazards, look at the space, look at the layout, ensuring that the training area has enough space for participants to safely practice in SI approved physical intervention techniques, avoiding the risks of collision or injury. So if you've got a smaller space, then you would need to get individuals to sit out and they can take turns. Ideally, you need a larger area. Look at your flooring. Is it suitable for physical activities? Prioritizing services that reduce the risk of falls and facilitate safe practice of techniques. Look at your stairs and elevated areas. So consider where the stairs are or any change in elevation which can potentially cause trips as well. So this is a particular risk we need to consider. Ventilation and lighting. So checking the space is well ventilated and sufficiently lit will help to ensure good visibility for safe training. Now look at participant safety. So we should always look at a health screening process to confirm participants' fitness for physical intervention, considering there are specific personal health issues and the demands of SI approved techniques. Now it's critical that only qualified instructors teach these SI approved techniques. And if you're going through our physical intervention model, then you have to be approved to deliver those techniques as well. So this will allow you to deal with potential risks with each technique. So ensure that you have adequate supervision as well. So ensuring that you maintain those proper instructor to participant ratios, which are generally 12 learners to every teacher. And this helps to facilitate safe practice of those physical techniques, and it aids that learning process as well. Modify the training area to optimize safety. So remove any unnecessary hazards and arrange the space to accommodate the safe practice of those techniques. So this could be moving the tables and chairs and bags out of the way. Evaluate the effectiveness of the implemented risk control methods after each session to identify any safety incidents or areas for improvement. So that risk assessment should be a continuous process where you're identifying new hazards, putting in new control methods, and then evaluating how they went. So after identifying those potential hazards in the training environment, particularly one where SI approved physical intervention techniques are being taught, it's essential to develop and record risk mitigation strategies. So these strategies should be clearly documented within that risk assessment process to ensure they are communicated and implemented. So look at your space and layout. So increase the training area per participant to ensure that there's ample space for practicing techniques without that risk of collision. Use floor markings to designate specific areas for activities, ensuring there's a safe distance between participants. So record the minimum space requirements per participant, which is generally 2 meters squared per person, and the layout adjustments in the risk assessment document. Think about flooring. Generally, when you're doing physical intervention techniques, nothing should go to the floor. But what happens if there's an accident? So think about installing mats or any other shock absorbing materials in areas where falls or physical contact could happen. Ensure that floor is non-slip and even. So note the type of flooring used and any additional safety materials installed to minimize that risk. Restrict physical intervention activities away from stairs and elevated areas. Use physical barriers or clear signage to ensure these areas are seen as no activity zones. Now remember, when you're teaching the stairs technique in physical intervention, you don't need to go up a full flight of stairs to show the technique. So maybe you just go up a few stairs that minimizes the impact if someone should fall. So include the location of stairs and elevated areas in your risk assessments and the measures taken to isolate them from the training activities in the risk assessment. So no going up the full range of stairs. Ensure your training area is equipped with effective ventilation system to maintain that comfortable temperature. So remember, people will be moving around and the body will be getting warmer. Use natural and artificial lighting to help to achieve optimal visibility. So record the ventilation and lighting checks done, including any adjustments or equipment used to maintain optimal conditions. If you're using any equipment or props, so you need to regularly inspect them to ensure you're checking them for wear and tear, replacing or repairing any that are not in perfect condition. But choose equipment that is only designed and approved for the training. Make sure you keep a log of the equipment inspections and maintenance actions for health and safety reasons and legislation, including the suitability of each item for the intended training activity. Participant safety is key, so implement your pre-training health screenings to assess participants' fitness levels. So require the use of appropriate PPE and provide training on how to use it correctly. So document screening protocols, PPE requirements and distribution records to ensure compliance. Verify the qualifications of all your instructors, ensuring they are certified to teach SI approved techniques. Ensure they've got a physical intervention license as well. So maintain that appropriate instructor to participant ratios to ensure effective supervision. Make sure you keep records of instructor certifications and your supervision plan, including your ratios and supervision strategies. Then we've got emergency preparedness. So develop and communicate that emergency plan. So what would happen if there was a fire alarm, if there was a incident, someone got injured? So detail things like your first aid and reporting protocols, conduct regular fire drills, ensure that everyone's familiar with those processes. So outline your emergency procedures in your risk assessment, including detailing those first aid kits, emergency contacts, and the protocols for drills. And lastly, it's all about continuous improvement. So any risk assessment is about that improvement. There needs to be a process for that ongoing risk evaluation. So that post-session review and that feedback helps to identify new hazards or inefficiencies in current strategies, and then it allows us to create new strategies to overcome them going forward. Identifying personal factors that may increase risk for participants in a physical intervention training environment is critical for ensuring the safety and well-being of all involved. So by recognizing these individual differences and needs, trainers can tailor the training to accommodate everyone effectively. So let's start with medical conditions. So conditions such as heart problems, high blood pressure, asthma, or diabetes will increase a participant's risk during physical demanding activities. So these conditions might affect their ability to participate fully and safely in the training. So implement pre-training health screenings or questionnaires to identify any existing medical conditions and adjust your training intensity, provide breaks as needed, and have that medical support available. Physical impairments include mobility issues, visual or hearing impairments, or previous injuries can limit a participant's ability to perform certain physical intervention techniques safely. So you might need to adapt training methods or use assistive devices, alternative techniques that accommodate these impairments. So ensure the training environment is accessible to all participants. But remember, any accommodations in techniques must be approved. Cognitive impairments such as learning difficulties or conditions such as ADHD or autism may face challenges in understanding those instructions, maintaining focus, or remembering techniques. So use clear, concise instructions, provide one-on-one support if needed, and employ a variety of teaching methods to cater to different learning styles. Repetition and hands-on practice is particularly beneficial. Psychological factors such as stress or anxiety or even post-traumatic experiences can help a participant's psychological readiness for physical intervention. So these factors might influence their comfort levels, their participation, and overall learning experiences. So we need to create a supportive and non-judgmental training environment offer options for participants to observe before participating, and provide psychological support or resources as needed to ensure instructors are trained to recognize and sensitively respond to signs of distress. Tailor the intensity of the training to the group's overall fitness level and provide modifications alternatives for less fit participants to ensure everyone can participate safely. So you might have learners who are at a higher risk of injury and may require more time to perform and to learn these techniques safely. So you could adjust the pace of training and provide additional support modifications to accommodate those participants. Use the information gathered from your pre-training screenings to help to personalize those training plans and to adjust for participants with identified risks. So maintain open lines of communication with all participants, encourage them to share any concerns or needs that may affect their participation. So throughout the training, make sure you continuously monitor participants with signs of distress, discomfort or difficulty with the activities, being prepared to adjust the training approach as needed to ensure safety and inclusivity. Conducting a safety briefing is a critical step before commencing any physical intervention training session. So this briefing ensures that all participants are aware of the safety protocols, understand the training's physical demands, and are familiar with the measures in place to protect their well-being. So first, we need to look at preparation. Before the training session, prepare a detailed safety briefing document. So this document should include all safety protocols, emergency procedures, and the training's physical demands. It should also introduce the stop command and explain its importance. Ensure the briefing document is available to all learners, taking into account their different needs such as language proficiency and disabilities. So consider providing the document in multiple formats that could be written, visual, or auditory. When conducting the briefing, begin the session with a verbal safety briefing covering all the points in the briefing document, ensuring to speak clearly and at a pace that allows learners to absorb the information. Clearly demonstrate any commands or signals, especially the stop command, which can be used by anyone to halt the activity immediately for safety reasons. So explain the context in which it may be used and encourage its use without hesitation if anyone feels unsafe or observes a risky situation. After the verbal briefing, open the floor for questions. So encourage your participants to seek clarification on any points they do not understand, and this can be done in a group setting or individually to ensure everyone feels comfortable. So make sure that all your participants acknowledge that they've understood and accepted those terms of the safety briefing. Throughout the training session, regularly remind your participants of the key safety protocols, especially before commencing new or more complex activities. Ensuring that participants are physically prepared for physical intervention skills training is essential to minimize the risk of injury and ensure that all individuals can participate safely and effectively. So we can start on the verbal discussion on physical requirements. So begin with a clear overview of the physical requirements of the session, detailing the types of activities and the movements involved. Discuss the inherent risks associated with the training and the importance of adhering to the safety protocols to mitigate these risks. Issue medical declaration forms or your health screenings that participants must fill out before the training. And these forms should inquire about any existing medical knowledge, physical impairments, or other health concerns that could affect their ability to safely participate. Provide an opportunity for participants to discuss any health concerns privately, and this can help to identify individuals who may require adaptations to their training or to seek further medical consultation. Conduct comprehensive warm-up sessions focusing on key stabilizing muscle areas such as muscles, tendons, ligaments, neck, spine, hips, knees, and ankles. So your warm-up should include dynamic stretches and light cardiovascular activities to prepare the body for physical intervention. So imagine working in real life. Do you have time to complete a warm-up? Not particularly, but in the eyes of training, you do. So actually you can minimize those risks by performing that warm-up in the training. So it is essential. Ensure that you continuously monitor the well-being of your learners, looking for signs of distress, discomfort, or fatigue. Pay special attention to their execution of techniques to ensure they're not putting undue stress on their bodies. And lastly, ensure that your learners understand and comply to those requirements. So ensure that your learners confirm that all they understand the safety brief, they understand what they're engaging in, and they're happy to continue. So continue to communicate their needs, any discomfort or concerns, reassure them that things can be adjusted, you can make pauses, and you can accommodate to those personal needs. So simply just taking these steps can significantly reduce the risk of injury to ensure that you have a safe, a positive and inclusive training environment. The effectiveness and safety of physical intervention training will hinge on several critical factors, and these are to ensure that your participants not only learn and apply the skills effectively, but they do so in a manner that minimizes the risks to themselves and others. So we all start with a safe environment. So that safe environment is needed for physical intervention skills to be carried out. And this includes having adequate space, suitable flooring, and removal of any unnecessary hazards that can pose a risk. A safe Conducting health screenings or requiring medical declarations from participants before training helps to identify any existing conditions that may affect their ability to safely participate. So this step is crucial for the tailoring of the training to accommodate those individual health needs and limitations. The behaviour of both trainers and the participants significantly impact the training's safety and effectiveness. Professionalism, respect, and a positive attitude which contribute to a conducive learning environment. So continuous monitoring of participants ensures they are performing techniques correctly and safely, which includes watching the signs for fatigue or distress and intervening as necessary to prevent injury. A comprehensive safety briefing before the start of the training ensures that all participants are aware of the expectations, procedures, and protocols designed to keep them safe, so clear communication of the training rules is paramount. Participants' adherence to the established safety protocols and training rules is critical to preventing accidents and injuries, so it's essential for trainers to enforce these rules consistently. Encouraging participants to monitor themselves and their peers for proper technique and adherence to safety measures fosters a shared responsibility for the group's well-being. Training should focus on the safe, non-harmful physical intervention techniques which are approved. So the use of martial arts or techniques designed to inflict pain is not appropriate, and that increases the risk of injury. And lastly, trainers must be able to observe and assess all the participants throughout the training session, which may require maintaining a favourable training to participant ratio and positioning oneself strategically to oversee the entire training area. Deviating from an approved physical intervention program, especially one recognised by the SIA, can lead to several significant and adverse consequences. These programs are meticulously designed to balance the effectiveness of physical intervention techniques with the safety of both the practitioner and the subject. Deviating from an approved curriculum may result in learners not covering all the necessary content, leading them to fail to meet the assessment criteria. So this failure compromises their ability to obtain certification or successfully complete the training, affecting their career progression and opportunities. Unapproved techniques or deviations from the structured program increase the risk of injury during training sessions. Participants and trainers might be exposed to maneuvers that are unsafe or beyond their skill level, leading to accidents and injuries. Techniques that are not part of an approved program have not been risk assessed or recognised by authoritative bodies like the SIA. So learners may unknowingly adopt methods that are ineffective, inappropriate, or dangerous, undermining the integrity and the objectives of the training. And then there's the legal consequences. So there will be legal ramifications for both trainers and organisations if unapproved techniques lead to injury or harm. So trainers could be held liable for negligence, and organisations could face lawsuits, financial penalties, and damage to their reputations. Then you have professional consequences. So trainers who deviate from approved programs risk damaging their professional reputations, which can lead to a loss of trust amongst learners, employers, and within the wider security industry. Managing learner behavior is crucial in maintaining a safe and effective learning environment, especially in physical intervention training where the physical safety of participants is paramount. So you'll need to effectively monitor learner behavior by constantly observing learners for adherence to those safety protocols and instructions, which includes watching for both physical and verbal cues that indicate engagement, understanding, and respect for the training process and others. Regularly remind learners of the key points from the safety briefing throughout the session. This reinforcement helps to ensure that the safety protocols remain fresh in learners' minds and are adhered to. From the outset, communicate clearly that the training environment is a professional setting where respectful and cooperative behavior is expected, and outline the consequences of failing to adhere to these expectations. If a learner exhibits unsafe or disruptive behavior, provide immediate specific feedback explaining why the behavior is unacceptable and what the expected behavior is. So start with a verbal warning, and if necessary, escalate to more formal warnings, ensuring that the response is proportional to the behavior and that all learners are aware of that escalation process. Establish clear criteria for what behaviors will result in exclusion or removal from the training. And this can include repeated disregard for safety instructions, aggressive behavior towards others, or any actions that compromise the safety of the training environment. So have a defined process for removing a learner from the training, which also respects their dignity and ensuring the safety of all participants. And this process should include private discussion with the learner to explain the decision, documentation of behavior and decision-making process, and information on any appeals process. And always document instances of disruptive and unsafe behavior, including the context. This behavior observed, anyone is given, and the outcome must be reported. And it's needed for transparency, accountability, and as a reference in case of disputes. Identifying and managing barriers to learning is crucial in creating an inclusive and effective training environment, especially in courses involving physical intervention skills. So these barriers can range from individual learner abilities and requirements to interpersonal dynamics such as peer pressure and ego. Begin by assessing learners' abilities and learning needs through pre-course questionnaires, discussions, or observations at the start of the training. So based on this assessment, make reasonable adjustments to the training material, delivery methods, and physical environment to accommodate different learning styles and physical abilities. This can include providing additional support for learners with disabilities, adjusting the pace of the course, or alternatively, looking at different ways to demonstrate competency. Create a learning atmosphere that emphasizes support, teamwork, and mutual respect. So address any competitive behavior directly and reinforce the value of learning from mistakes and from each other. So as a trainer, model the behavior you expect from your learners. Demonstrate humility, openness to learning, and respect for all participants regardless of their skill level. Acknowledge and manage the varying skill levels within the group. Some participants may have prior or higher skill levels in self-defense techniques, which can impact group dynamics and individual confidence. So ensure that training is not solely focused on those at higher or lower end of the spectrum. Provide challenges and support for all learners, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to develop their skills. Clearly communicate the purpose and appropriate context for using the self-defense techniques being taught. Discuss the legal implications and the ethical implications of misuse and emphasize de-escalation and avoidance strategies. Use a variety of teaching methods to cater to those different learning styles and abilities, which should include a mixture of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning activities. Organising and positioning learners effectively is crucial for maximising the learning experience, especially in physical intervention training where visual and practical demonstrations play that significant role. So arc formations are when you arrange learners in an arc or a semicircle around the demonstration area, and this formation allows for a clear line of sight for all participants, facilitating better visibility of the techniques being demonstrated. Then you have the line formation, which for certain demonstrations, especially those requiring observation of lateral movements, positioning learners in a straight line facing the demonstration can be effective. Ensure that there's adequate space between learners to prevent obstructed views. Now, the key thing is to organize and position learners so that they can learn effectively from instruction. And with this in mind, you might need to think about your own movement, your own position of how you can move around your learners to watch certain elements. Again, when techniques encourage individuals to turn, then you're going to have to turn with them to see the changes that is needed. So conduct demonstrations in a central open area where all learners have an unobstructed view. Avoid standing with your back to any part of the group. So look at your line, look at your arc formations. Use a strong, clear voice to ensure instructions can be heard by all participants. So consider using a microphone or a portable speaker in larger spaces or outdoor environments. Perform each technique or skill from multiple angles. Rotate around a demonstration area or have learners move to different positions to see the technique from various perspectives. If needed, you could use mirrors to allow learners to see the demonstrations from additional angles without the need to reposition. Employ assistant instructors or experienced learners to perform additional demonstrations simultaneously, ensuring that large groups can see the technique up close from multiple angles. Employ video technology to demonstrate, record those demonstrations, project them onto screens, or provide them with supplementary material for learners to review. And this can be particularly helpful for complex techniques that benefit from a slow motion analysis or multiple viewings. After demonstrating a technique, allow learners to practice immediately. So provide them the opportunity to apply what they've just observed, which enforces the learning through action and muscle memory. Encourage learners to provide continuous feedback, constructive feedback to each other during those practice sessions as well. So not only does this encourage learning from different perspectives, but it also reinforces that communal learning environment as well. After demonstrations, conduct brief Q&A sessions to clarify any uncertainties and ensure comprehension. Encourage questions and be prepared to demonstrate key points again if necessary. Periodically check in with your learners during the practice sessions to address any personal difficulties or misconceptions. Explaining the purpose and potential use of a physical intervention skill before teaching it is crucial for ensuring learners understand not only how to perform the skill, but also when and why it should be used. So this understanding is essential for ensuring that physical interventions are carried out legally, ethically, professionally, and safely. Begin by presenting a scenario or circumstance that is relevant to the learner's work environment where the physical intervention technique might be necessary. And this can include situations such as de-escalating a potentially violent confrontation or safely managing a person in distress. Discuss the legal framework governing the use of physical intervention, emphasizing the importance of using the least amount of force as is necessary and only as that last resort. Highlight the laws of self-defense, reasonable force, and duty of care to ensure learners understand the legal boundaries within which they must operate. Explain the potential medical risks associated with the technique, both to the person applying it and the person on the receiving end. Stress the importance of understanding anatomy and physiology to minimize the risk of injury. Discuss the aftercare following a physical intervention, including those monitoring the signs of injury or distress and providing appropriate medical assistance if needed. Clarify how the skill fits within organizational policies and procedures. So ensure that learners understand professional standards expected of them, including reporting and documentation requirements following an intervention. Emphasize the importance of ongoing training and competency assessments to maintain that professional standard to ensure the skill is performed correctly and safely each time. Highlight the ethical considerations of physical intervention, including respecting the dignity and rights of the individual involved. So discuss the ethical imperative to attempt to de-escalate and non-physical options first, and to use physical intervention only when absolutely necessary. So providing learners with a comprehensive understanding of the context, legal framework, medical risks, professional standards, ethical surroundings surrounding the physical intervention skills. As a trainer, you can ensure that your learners are fully informed about the complexities of using such techniques. It allows them to make judgmental decisions about when and how to use physical intervention in their professional roles. Providing an accurate and safe demonstration of physical intervention skills is paramount to ensure learners understand technique and can apply it safely. Start with a step-by-step demonstration. So begin with a verbal explanation of the technique, outlining each step and its purpose. This helps learners to understand the sequence and objectives before seeing the technique in action. Perform the technique slowly and deliberately, emphasizing each movement's precision and control. Slow motion allows learners to observe the intricacies of the technique and understand the mechanics and safety considerations involved. Demonstrate the technique from various angles, and this helps to ensure all the learners have a clear view of the movements, rotating the demonstration area or moving around while performing the technique to offer different perspectives as well. So you could use mirrors or video playback to show the technique from additional viewpoints. This can be particularly helpful for complex maneuvers that are difficult to capture from a single angle. We like to use videos on PowerPoint to show the learners from different angles as well. After the demonstration, ask learners specific questions to confirm their understanding of the technique. This could include asking them to identify key movements or the technique's purpose. Based on the learner's feedback and questions, repeat the demonstration, possibly focusing on particular movements or steps that require further clarification. While learners practice, offer constructive feedback on their technique, ensure they maintain accuracy and safety. So highlight both what they're doing correctly and areas for improvement. Breaking down a skill into its component parts is a highly effective method of teaching, so particularly for complex physical intervention techniques, and this approach allows learners to understand and master each element of the technique before integrating them into the full sequence. Divide the technique into manageable steps or components. So for example, if teaching a restraint technique, you might break it down into initial positioning, hand placement, body movement, applying the hold and releasing the hold. For each component, focus on those specific actions, body mechanics and safety considerations, then explain the rationale behind each movement and its importance to the overall technique. Demonstrate each component separately, performing the action slowly and clearly. Highlight common mistakes and how to avoid them. Show from different angles. Have learners practice each component individually. This allows them to focus on mastering one part of the technique at a time without being overwhelmed by the full sequence. As learners practice, offer specific feedback on their execution of each component. Positive reinforcement for correct technique and gentle correction for mistakes will help learners to improve. Once learners are comfortable with those individual components, guide them into combining the parts into the full technique. Start with combining two components, then gradually add more until the entire technique is integrated. Continuously observe learners as they practice the integrated techniques. Offer immediate constructive feedback to correct any deviations from the proper technique. Always encourage learners to reflect on their performance and identify areas for improvement. So peer feedback can also be a valuable tool for learning. Supervising these safe practice of skills, especially in physical intervention training, requires a focused approach to ensure all participants learn effectively whilst minimizing those risks of injury. Organize practice sessions where learners can apply the techniques they've learned in a controlled environment. So ensure that each learner has enough space and that all necessary safety equipment is used. As a trainer, it's crucial to maintain continuous observation of all learners during practice sessions. This enables you to quickly identify and correct unsafe practices or techniques. Reinforce those safety protocols at the start of each practice session. Remind learners of the importance of adhering to these protocols throughout the training. Clearly instruct learners on the appropriate level of force to be used during practice. This should be minimal, especially in the initial stages of learning a new technique. So closely monitor the force applied by learners during those practice sessions, intervening when necessary to prevent excessive force that could lead to injury. And from experience, learners will like to complete the techniques using more force than they actually need to demonstrate. You will gradually increase the intensity of practice sessions so the learners become more proficient with the techniques, and this should be done in small but controlled increments to ensure safety. You need to adjust the intensity based on those individual abilities and comfort levels of learners. Not all participants will progress at the same rate, and adjustments should be made accordingly. Follow the physical intervention model's guidelines for the safe practice of techniques, including recommended percentages of force increments. This ensures that all practice is safe within the learning and that all learners are managed to ensure they move through those stages at the right time without going too far ahead where it can cause injuries. Providing learners with effective coaching points and feedback is essential in any physical intervention training program. This guidance ensures that learners not only understand the techniques, but can also apply them safely and correctly. Offer personalized coaching and feedback to individual learners, focusing on their specific needs and areas for improvement. So this targeted approach allows for detailed correction of errors and adjustment of techniques based on each learner's performance and comprehension level. Address errors as soon as possible and as soon as they are observed, prevent that reinforcement of incorrect technique. Provide clear constructive guidance on how to correct the mistake. When correcting errors, also highlight what the learner is doing correctly, but this balanced feedback encourages continued effort and improvement. Clearly explain the potential risks associated with incorrect technique execution, such as injury to themselves or others. Understanding these risks, it reinforces the importance of precision and adherence to taught methods. Break down a technique into manageable steps, providing clear, concise instructions on how to perform each part of the technique properly. Offer further demonstrations of the technique, focusing on the areas where errors are most common. Seeing the technique performed correctly can help learners to visualize and replicate the correct form. Offer encouragement and positive feedback to motivate your learners. Recognize effort and improvement can boost confidence and facilitate a positive learning environment. Encourage questions from learners, providing a platform for them to seek feedback and clarification for that deeper understanding of the techniques. Facilitate sessions where learners can give and receive feedback from their peers. This peer review process can provide valuable insights and alternative perspectives, enhancing that learner experience. Ensure your learners have an ample opportunity to practice techniques under supervision. Practice is crucial for reinforcing learning, correcting errors, and building confidence in their abilities. Provide learners with resources for further study and practice, such as your instructional videos, reading materials for online forums. This helps to support continuous improvement beyond the training sessions. So with our PI model, you are expected to give these resources to your learners to help them develop and maintain their effectiveness when it comes to physical intervention training. Adapting strategies to facilitate problem solving and application of skills in the workplace is essential for effective learning, especially when it comes to physical intervention training. So this approach not only enhances your learners' understanding of the skills, but also their ability to apply them in real life. Incorporate scenarios that mimic real-life situations learners might encounter in the workplace. This contextualizes the skills being taught and prompts learners to think critically about how they would apply these skills in specific contexts. Be attentive to learner questions and feedback. Use these insights to adjust your teaching, addressing specific concerns or misunderstandings by providing additional explanations, demonstrations, or practice opportunities. Regularly incorporate Q&A sessions throughout the training. So these sessions encourage learners to voice their questions and concerns, providing a platform for clarification and deeper understanding. Offer immediate constructive feedback during those practice sessions, Focus on both what learners are doing well and areas where they can improve. So you need to highlight these specific adjustments or how these specific adjustments can enhance the effectiveness of their techniques. So use positive reinforcement to motivate your learners, acknowledge their progress and their efforts, which also helps to boost their confidence and encourage that continued engagement. Then we need to continuously adapt. So continuously assess the effectiveness of your teaching methods and the learner's ability to apply those skills in those problem-solving scenarios. Be prepared to make ongoing adjustments to your teaching approach based on this assessment. So actively seek feedback from your learners on the relevance and applicability of the skills being taught. Use this feedback to refine future training sessions, ensuring that they are aligned with workplace needs and challenges. Demonstrating knowledge of the agreed standards in the assessment of physical intervention skills is vital for ensuring that training is effective and it meets regulatory requirements, and also that it equips learners with the necessary skills to perform safely and competently in their roles. These assessment standards often revolve around the key principles of conscious competence cycle, safe application of techniques, duty of care, effective communication, and the prioritization of de-escalation. The conscious competence cycle is like a model of learning that describes the stages through which a learner progresses while acquiring new skills, from an unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. In the context of physical intervention skills, trainers will evaluate learners based on their progression through these stages, looking for evidence that they are not only skilled, but they're also aware of their competence in applying those skills as well. Learners should demonstrate the ability to apply physical intervention techniques unprompted and safely, indicating that they have internalized the training and can apply it in the real world situations without any direct guidance. And this involves assessing both their technical proficiency and their judgment in using the appropriate level of force. Duty of care is paramount in physical intervention, so requiring that all actions taken are in the best interest of all parties' safety. Assessment should evaluate whether learners consistently demonstrate a duty of care towards themselves, the individuals they are interacting with, and the bystanders for the application of physical intervention techniques. Effective communication is that critical component of physical intervention, often serving as a tool for de-escalation. Assessment should gauge learners' ability to use verbal and non-verbal communication effectively to manage those conflicts, demonstrate control, and reduce the need for physical intervention. The ability to de-escalate situations at the earliest opportunity is a key competency in physical intervention. So assessment should focus on learners' skills in recognizing the potential for conflict escalation and employing de-escalation techniques prevent it from reaching a point where physical intervention is necessary. In an ideal situation, we shouldn't need to use physical intervention, but it happens. Assessing learners against agreed standards, particularly in the context of physical intervention skills, requires a structured and objective approach to ensure fairness, accuracy, and consistency. The assessment process involves observing learners as they perform techniques, ensuring all assessment criteria are met, and providing that constructive feedback. Create a checklist based on the PI model's assessment points for each technique being assessed. This ensures that all critical components of the technique are evaluated. Use a detailed criteria checklist derived from the PI model to ensure a comprehensive assessment. Each point in the checklist should correspond to a key element of the technique being assessed. Offer immediate, specific feedback and constructive feedback after that observation. Highlight strengths and areas for improvement, ensuring that the feedback is actionable and supportive. Instruct learners to introduce themselves, state the date, and describe the technique they will demonstrate prior to starting. This not only ensures clarity and record keeping, but also helps learners practice presenting themselves professionally. Record those demonstrations using appropriate equipment. This allows for a more thorough post-assessment review and gives learners the opportunity to see the performance from an external perspective. The benefits of video assisted assessment, we need them for a compliance point of view, but also it allows learners to review their recorded performance, and it can be an eye-opening experience, enabling them to self-identify areas for improvement. Video recordings enable a detailed analysis of the demonstration, reviewing the footage together with the learner, pausing to discuss specific moments and offering targeted advice. Completing assessment documentation accurately is a crucial part of the assessment process for physical intervention skills training. It ensures that the assessment results are formally recorded, providing a clear record of learner achievements and areas of improvement. Before starting the documentation process, have a checklist of all the required fields that need to be completed in the assessment paperwork. This may include learner details, assessment criteria, observer comments, and outcomes. Ensure that each section of the assessment paper is filled out thoroughly and accurately, and pay particular attention to the specific criteria being assessed, marking clearly whether each criterion has been met, partially met, or not met, but why. Verify that all learner information is correctly entered, including names, identification numbers, if applicable, and any other required personal details. So fill in those details related to the assessment, such as the date, location, namely assessor, and the specific skills or techniques being assessed. Ensure that you have signatures. Make sure your learners assign the documentation where required, ensuring that you have feedback and understand the assessment outcomes, where the assessor's signature validates the assessment's accuracy and fairness. Maintain the confidentiality of assessment documentation, ensuring that it's stored securely and only accessible to authorized personnel. And this will protect the privacy of the learners and maintain that integrity of the assessment process. Once documents have been completed, review it thoroughly to ensure no sections have been missed and that all the information is accurate. And for good practice, it's advised to get another person to verify the documentation to ensure it's complete and accurate. File the completed documentation according to your organization's record-keeping protocols, making sure it's stored in a manner that's both secure and easy to retrieve for future reference or audits. Accurately completing the assessment documentation is a fundamental responsibility of assessors in physical intervention skills training. So not only provides the formal records of the learner's performance, but also contributes to overall quality and integrity of that training program. So assessment documentation and completing it and storing it correctly is probably the biggest weakness of all physical intervention trainers. So get in that habit of going through systematically completing the paperwork and get someone else, such as your IQA, to ensure it's completed accurately. And this is the end of the physical intervention level 3, how to break down your sessions, how to break down your techniques, the laws and legislations around it, and going all the way to completing your documentation to ensure it remains valid for assessments.